Greetings, gentlemen. This story is truly crazy, and why it is crazy you will know when you listen to it to the end. The hero of this story finds out by accident that his wife and her AP are preparing an insidious plan against him. But what will he do to stop them? Let's find out. Let's go. According to Jacob Morrissey, someone who destroys the love that means everything to you is not a good person. It is even more destructive if this person is your spouse, the one who should love you more than anyone else and know you thoroughly. She saw you in your weakest state and became a part of your being. The connection between all-encompassing love and cancer is very deep. Jacob realized that there are different kinds of love and compared them to cancer. Some of them are benign and others are malignant. His wife belonged to the latter category, and like cancer, she had to be removed from his life. Jacob was confident in his ability to do this, believing that even she would understand and accept the way he planned to get rid of her. Looking out the window at the colorful garden of their English cottage, Jacob realized that this was the perfect end to their tumultuous relationship. The garden to which she devoted hours, creating and cultivating it, which she cherished more than all the others, was her pride and joy. And yet she let him go. It was like coming home to her. Jacob considered it a poetic feeling that did not leave him while he was looking at an empty canvas with a brush in his hands. He was waiting for the right moment, experiencing an indescribable feeling. It was thirst, longing, a feeling that made my fingertips tingle and my stomach flutter. The desire that resonated in his soul and the need that bubbled in his gut. A clear vision in his head guided his hand, prompting every move. Without art, Jacob's studio was empty. Turning slowly, he examined the four walls hung with empty canvases. They seemed to be watching him, casually leaning over like premier regulars, and each was decorated with preparatory sketches encouraging him to begin. "What?" he shouted to the canvases. "I'm waiting for inspiration, and so are you. If you want a challenge, challenge him." Jacob frowned, dropping the brush, and watched it roll across the floor until it stopped near one of the painted canvases. Angry, he angrily threw the palette on the floor, and it fell to the floor along with the paint. Still feeling awkward, he kicked the palette, enjoying the colorful stain it had left on the wooden floor. It was the most artistic act in recent months. Every day after the incident, Jacob made sure to go out for a walk. This time was no exception. He was walking along a well-known path, along which tall trees grew. Their branches were strewn with bright green leaves of the new spring season. A carpet of daffodils in yellow, white, and green shades spread out under the maples, leading to the gate in the distance. Jacob walked forward, his feet firmly planted in the present moment, and his thoughts remained in the past. He recalled their conversations. "Jake, please, let's do this. It will make the house perfect," Grace pleaded. Jake couldn't help but smile. The word perfect has always been her favorite. "The journey is so long that it will take forever," he said. "But over time they will multiply and only become more beautiful," she replied optimistically. "They will grow as our happiness grows." He couldn't refuse her. Jacob frowned at the abundance of daffodils. She lied that they were happy flowers, and he wasn't happy about it. For dinner, he ate cold-baked beans from a jar, sitting on the floor in his workshop. For dessert, there were several dried apples, which eventually became tough. After chewing on them, Jacob remembered the delicious roast that Grace had made. He closed his eyes and imagined the aroma of pork with homemade applesauce wafting from a large double oven. Grace's voice sounded in Jacob's ear. "Dinner is ready." He instinctively turned around but found no one. Grace had been gone for months. Now she was cooking Shelby a delicious roast, which he so wanted to eat. "Shelby? Who the hell is Shelby?" Jacob asked, addressing the empty room. A wealthy, pretentious art collector born into a privileged position, Shelby had more money than brains. Jacob snorted, remembering how he had described this feeble-minded man who had stolen his wife from him. A man known for his fast cars and even faster women is a rich but boring man. Ironically, she met Shelby at Jacob's last solo art exhibition. To impress her, he even bought one of Jacob's paintings, spending $45,000 on it. Jacob froze in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he saw with his own eyes. His mind screamed silently, refusing to accept the truth. She embodied grace, as her name implied. Every curve of her body moved easily with the man lying beneath her. Her back arched gracefully. Her breasts heaved. Her hands rested gently on his hips. Her head was thrown back and her throat was bare. Her long hair reached his hips, swaying with every movement. Even in silhouette, Jake knew the truth about what his mind was trying to deny. If he had been watching an adult film, he might have found it exciting. But it wasn't a movie. It was his wife, and it seemed obscene. Jake froze for a moment, pressing his hands to his stomach, feeling the full weight of his betrayal and impending doom. He tore his gaze away from the disturbing scene unfolding in front of him and focused on his hands. Jacob raised his hands to eye level and shook his head in disbelief. For a moment, he thought he saw blood. His hand reached for the half-empty bottle, and without hesitation, he squeezed the neck tightly. His lips obediently parted to accept and close around the wet hole. My throat resisted, but my stomach gladly accepted the scalding liquid. Jacob carefully placed the open bottle on the ground and moved it a short distance away, and then lay back down. Turning on his side, he curled up into a ball. The studio floor seemed like the most suitable place to relax. The phone buzzed in Jacob's head. The ringing of his cell phone made him groan, both from the noise and from the realization that someone was calling him. Why did he choose this annoying tune? All he wanted was to fall asleep again, to sink into peaceful oblivion. He had no desire to talk to anyone, not today, not ever. The call didn't stop, getting louder and more annoying. With a grunt, Jacob rolled onto his back and grabbed his work pants. Glancing at the screen, he saw that it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. How did the day fly by so quickly? Annoyed, he answered the phone, muttering a curt hello into the receiver. Jesus, Jake, can't you answer the phone properly? I can be a potential buyer, the agent scolded him. Jacob felt a surge of irritation at her tone. My name is Jacob. What do you need? I'm busy. Yes, but it doesn't matter. Hopefully being busy means that you're going to confirm that your show is still on this summer. Jacob sighed and sat down, staring at the blank canvases on the wall in front of him. Everything is going smoothly and according to plan. This is one of my best works. Let me know when I can appoint a photographer to start shooting them for the exhibition. Jacob passed out, but when he woke up and saw the bottle, he thought about returning to oblivion. Just as he was reaching for the bottle, he was interrupted by the sound of his phone. Grace's name appeared on the screen. He hesitated, but eventually answered the phone, unable to give up old habits. Jake? The hesitation in her voice further inflamed Jacob's anger. It was all a lie. He squeezed his eyes shut and rubbed his temples. What do you need, Grace? He snapped. He heard her trembling sigh. Are you okay? Do you take care of yourself? What's the matter? She asked with obvious concern. You don't sound good. Are you drinking too much? Jacob replied mockingly. What the hell do you care? Grace hesitated before admitting, I care, Jake. I had a feeling that you needed me and I called. Jacob saw her mask. He knew that her concern was not sincere. Aren't you the holy figure of unfaithful wives pretending to care about the poor guy you offended? He replied. Jake, you have to stop verbally attacking me, she begged. You have to forget about what happened. We broke up long before I met Shelby. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Really? And it didn't occur to you to tell me about it? He asked. It's funny that you didn't mind continuing to live at my expense, sharing my bed and making love while we were, as you so delicately put it, breaking up. I didn't know how to tell you this news. I must say that your unique way of revealing the truth deserves praise. The fact that you were having an intimate relationship with another man was a clear sign of what stage our relationship was at. Jake thought about it, remembering. Perhaps he was hoping that the events of the previous evening were just a nightmare. Unfortunately, this was not the case. She was lying on the bed in their Sydney apartment, kneeling face down and back up. Grace's hair swayed to the beat and then stopped abruptly as she defiantly moved her hips. The man's voice became more assertive as he repeated, "What do you want, Grace?" "You," she replied. The man replied rudely, "That's what I thought. It's better to give my baby what she wants," and began to move with force. "Jake, you're here!" A voice interrupted her from her memories. Jacob, who had been silent before, finally spoke up. "Yes, I'm still here, trash. Please stop being rude to me. I still care about you. I'm calling because I care." Jacob waved away her request, knowing full well that she was being insincere. "How's Shelby?" Grace hesitated. "He's gone on business." Jacob's tone turned vicious. "You better take care, Grace. Maybe he's looking for someone else to seduce. Maybe he's tired of you, or vice versa. Are you bored? Do you want me to come and—" Grace interrupted him. "Stop it, Jake. I know you're just trying to hurt me." "You're absolutely right. I'm a disgusting person. You deserve all these harsh words, and even more." Jacob was breathing heavily, as if he had just run down the driveway and back. "I understand you. I know you still have feelings for me, Jake." Jacob remained silent. "What if I come to your place, cook a delicious dinner, and we discuss our divorce?" Jacob burst into loud, cynical laughter. "What are you up to, Grace? Are you going to poison me to take all my money? Isn't that enough for you, liar? Ripping out a man's heart is not enough for you? And Grace, I don't love you. I despise you." He heard her sharp sigh, and some part of his soul wanted to apologize and comfort her, like when their puppy was tragically hit by a truck because he didn't close the gate, and her heart was breaking. But this feeling lasted only a moment before he remembered her harsh and sarcastic words as she dragged the suitcase to the car. "You're a fool! I only married you because I knew you were going to be famous," she hissed. "I need a man who can satisfy me, not some weakling who sees me as a fragile porcelain doll. I wanted you to paint my portrait." Without saying a word, he abruptly ended the conversation, drowning out the haunting echoes of their past. Going into the cluttered kitchen, he pushed the dirty dishes aside to make room on the table. He took a frozen loaf of bread out of the freezer and with some difficulty cut off 2 pieces. He put them in the toaster and searched the pantry for peanut butter. When the toaster beeped and the aroma of toasted bread filled the room, Jacob's stomach rumbled with hunger. For lack of butter, which ran out a few weeks ago, he haphazardly spread peanut butter on toast. Jacob took a bite and, holding the toast in his hand, walked back to the pantry door. At that moment, Old Mother Hubbard's pantry seemed unusually full to him, and Jacob frowned irritably. It looks like he's going to have to go to town after all. As his dilapidated car sped through the streets, it seemed as if the city was devouring him and then throwing him out through the exhaust pipe. Jacob used to enjoy the power of the machine, but now it only brought him suffering. He no longer found joy in anything but the temporary salvation that alcohol provided. Reluctantly, he went to the post office, the hardware store, and the supermarket, buying everything he needed. All eyes were on him sympathetically, except for the cashier, who seemed to be flirting. Jacob didn't pay attention to the people around him. As he got into the car, he heard a buzzing coming from his pocket. Turning around in his seat, he took his phone out of his pants pocket. When Jacob saw that Grace was calling, he groaned, put his head on the steering wheel, and wondered if it was worth answering the call. He picked up the phone. "What do you need, Grace?" he asked. "Hi, Jake, how are you?" she answered. "Damn fun." "Aren't you going to ask how I'm doing?" Grace didn't seem to notice his sarcasm. "No, I'd like you to do that. I miss you." Jacob shook his head, wondering if she really expected him to believe her words. Did she think he had forgotten her cruel taunts? And where is the lover? What's the matter? He asked. He had meetings all day today. Damn, didn't little Gracie get enough attention? Shouldn't a partner put your needs first and give everything for you, like that previous partner who married you and gave you everything? Jacob paused, anticipating Grace's inevitable attempts to explain and defend herself. You haven't been around me for the last 2 years, Grace said. I was around every day, working from home, if you remember. Although you were physically present, your mind and heart were elsewhere, absorbed in art. Unfortunately, it left no room for me, and I felt isolated and needed to communicate. Now it seems that everything has been turned upside down, and you are being unfair. About 3 years ago, I started getting a fair price for my paintings, and now my works are selling for $25,000 or more, which is significantly more than the $2,500 that I received before. I've never heard you complain when my success allowed us to buy a house that you once called perfect, and an apartment in the city. You liked that part of my success, even though you felt lonely. He remembered again how Grace had moaned with pleasure, rocking back and forth. She begged for more, encouraging him to continue without stopping. Every word was like a dagger stabbing into Jake's heart. When was the last time she was so passionate with him? Finally, Grace asked, Jake, are you still here? Did you hear what I just said? No, and I don't want to. Jacob ignored her and ended the conversation. The aroma of the lasagna he had bought filled the air, beckoning him to finally enjoy a proper meal. Impatiently checking the time, he hoped that it would pass quickly, and he would be able to eat. Just as he was about to leave, the phone rang. Without even looking at the screen, he realized who it was. Was she really going to ruin everything? Hi, Jake. It's me again, she said. Yes, that's what I thought. What do you need? He answered. I want to talk to you, baby, she said. Jacob growled like a cornered animal. Her attempts to manipulate him infuriated him. Don't call me baby. I'm not your damn kid. I'm Jacob, the guy you dumped, he said. You wouldn't be so upset with me, Jake, if you still didn't love me, Grace snapped, and her facade swam. You're jealous that there's another man in my bed now, and you want it to still be you. When the train started, the green forest outside the window turned into a crowded urban suburb. Jake ignored the changing landscape, preferring not to look out the window. Instead of passing landscapes, there were memories of Grace and another man loving each other again. The pain of it all was almost unbearable. Despite his conflicting feelings, he felt an irresistible desire to get this case over with. He hoped that eventually he would hear her tell her lover that she loved her husband too much to continue. When Grace mentioned that she was going to the city for the weekend, he decided to take the train and rent a car to avoid exposure. Parked in front of Shelby Holborn's luxury home in the upscale suburb of Paddington, he waited patiently. Jake was sure that Grace would arrive in town before him. Her high-speed Lexus would overtake a slow train. After checking their Bondi apartment and finding that neither Grace nor her car were in it, Jake concluded that she must be spending the night at her lover's house. Watching Holborn's neighbors go about their daily business, he couldn't help but wonder about Grace's choice of lover. Her choice was inherently offensive. He was a privileged, attractive man, a womanizer born into wealth. Immediately after graduating from university, he took a high position in the family business. He got everything without much effort. What attracted Grace to him? Did she really think that he would change his behavior for her? That he wouldn't lose interest in her, as he had with all his previous mistresses? Although Jake probably didn't have the same financial standing as Shelby Holborn. Despite the fact that Jake has not received any handouts, his last 3 exhibitions have brought in more than $750,000, strengthening his status as an outstanding figure in the art world. He was compared to Australian Brett Whiteley and admired for his independent success. Unlike the others, Jake was not petty, vain, or selfish. His perseverance eventually bore fruit, but it was a bitter victory for him. His suspicions were confirmed. She spent the night at her lover's house. standing close enough to see her cocktail dress revealing a slit almost to her waist as she exited the Ferrari. He couldn't help but notice the lack of chivalry when the man didn't open the door for her. The revealing neckline of her dress clearly showed that she was not wearing a bra, and he was even close enough to catch snatches of their conversation, which seemed to have started in the car. Jake's face showed shock when he heard her question. "Do you really think I can get that much if it comes to a divorce?" A divorce? Was she really going to divorce him? He believed that he would ultimately make the decision. He planned to meet her face to face, expecting her to apologize, confess her boundless love for him, and promise to end the affair. He had already made the decision to forgive her, despite the difficulties and time it would take to restore their trust. He was willing to give her a second chance because he loved her so deeply. "Absolutely. I have analyzed the cost of both items. You made a reasonable purchase at the right time. Since then, real estate prices have increased significantly. Besides, you have money in the bank and your own art collection." Holborn paused, and his silence spoke volumes. Then he grinned, and a sinister smile played on his lips. "I didn't even think about his works," he said. "They will cost even more when he is gone. And as his current wife, you will automatically inherit everything. But what if he doesn't hurt himself before the divorce is finalized? You will inherit his estate anyway, unless he changes his will. And even then, you will be able to challenge it." The realization that Grace wanted him dead to the point where she wanted him to hurt himself was overwhelming. Using the information he had shared with her at the very beginning of their relationship to take him to such an extreme was unbearable. What child doesn't think about self-harm after learning that he is the only survivor of his family in a tragic car accident? Jake Morrissey's whole world was destroyed. "Jake, can you hear me? I can't answer you because I wasn't listening to you." Jacob sensed the anger in her voice. "You have to pay attention to me. You can't ignore me forever," she warned. Jacob chuckled as he watched her facade of feigned sincerity disappear again. "You might as well keep doing this forever," he thought. "Just go to the top, asshole, and save us the trouble of getting divorced." Grinning, he ended the conversation and returned to the easel, feeling an all-too-familiar disappointment rise in him. Nothing came to him, not a single stroke of inspiration. Jacob resented Grace not only for betraying him, but also for depriving him of his creative spark. Looking out the window at the cottage garden, he felt a surge of anger towards her for her deceptive intentions. He often watched her tending the garden. His latest project involved creating semi-abstract images of her in various roles in the garden of their house. How could she claim that he was not present mentally and emotionally when he devoted a whole year to capturing her essence in drawings, photographs, and paintings in her beloved garden? It was clear that her accusations were groundless and false. A deliberate lie designed to spoil his memories. A calculated attempt to distort their past by exposing him as the culprit. All in order to justify her lies, her selfishness, a way to rationalize her infidelity, a way to push him to the edge, push him to the breaking point. Jacob chuckled. She could deceive herself and others as much as she wanted. He knew the reality. Reality was a malignant, cancerous tumor, a cancerous growth in his life. A desire arose in Jacob's mind to eradicate her poisonous influence. When he looked at her garden, the colors seemed to intensify before his eyes. The blue color seemed deeper, the yellow more vivid, and the red more saturated and juicier. Even the greenery seemed brighter, like moss in a dense forest. A wave of euphoria swept over him, penetrating his veins and spreading to his heart, mind, and fingertips. Jacob reached for the bottle and took a sip as the fiery liquid mixed with euphoria. He looked at the phone and a smile spread across his face. He received 6 messages and immediately realized who was calling. Taking pleasure in thwarting her attempts to contact him, he secretly hoped that her composure was weakening as quickly as his own sanity. As a small reward for himself, he decided to go to the mailbox and pick up the mail. He decided not to read anything, but just to add to the huge pile cluttering his desktop. But admitting that cleaning the mailbox took effort from him, he decided to relax at the dining room table, sipping coffee contentedly. He added alcohol to it and dialed the number to check the messages. A familiar voice greeted him at the other end. "Hi, Jake. It's me. Please call me back, baby. I'm worried about you." Jacob rolled his eyes. Who was she thinking of fooling with her sweet words? Certainly not his. When the next message played, Jacob listened to her begging him to call her back. "Jake, it's me again. I know you're here. Please stop ignoring my calls. I need to talk to you. Call me back as soon as you receive this message." He smiled at the irritation in her voice. Grace was not a patient person, and Jacob was well aware of how much she disliked being ignored. After taking a sip of coffee, he waited for the next message and was disappointed when it turned out that it was Bart, his agent, asking about the progress of work on the next show. Jacob frowned, realizing that he would have to call Bart back and calm him down. Bart had a habit of surprising people with his unexpected visits, and it definitely didn't bode well. After taking another sip of coffee, Jacob sighed and started listening to the following messages. "Jake, you brainless jerk, you better call me back or you'll regret it." Grace's voice sounded angry and upset when she left a voice message for him. Jacob couldn't help but chuckle at her disappointment. And who did she call you, a brainless jerk? He always opened doors for her, did not forget to bring home her favorite chocolates when he traveled, and made her coffee every morning. She sipped it leisurely in bed because she didn't like mornings. Did the handsome Shelby do all this? Jacob doubted it very much. Most likely he was busy imitating his elders and planning how to spend his huge fortune without caring about these simple gestures. He definitely never opened the car doors for her and liked to call her a slutty woman. Jacob just shrugged his shoulders. Perhaps she liked being treated like a disposable item. Perhaps that was his mistake. Showering her with affection and respect, he didn't seem to change anything. The fifth message was a return to overly sweet words, with sincere apologies and requests to call him. It felt like an Oscar-worthy performance. After receiving the last message, Jacob felt a surge of excitement and eagerly pressed the button to listen to it again. Closing his eyes, he leaned back in his chair, enjoying the feeling of triumph. "That's it, Jake. I'm tired of waiting. No one will be able to avoid me anymore. I'm heading to the house, and you better be there," she announced. Jacob saved the message, then poured himself another cup of coffee and went to his studio. Looking out the window, he listened to Grace's last words on the phone, and a smile spread across his face as he admired her beautiful garden in the cottage. "She's coming home soon," he told the flowers. He heard the sound of an approaching car before it came into view, and it made him smile. He quickly jumped out of the back door and walked around the side of the house. Grabbing a weapon he knew she would like, he found the secret entrance to the garden. Following a narrow zigzag path, artfully camouflaged, he carefully made his way to the grassy center, where she had set up a low stone bench. Grace's secret garden was a haven for solitude, a place for contemplation, reading and daydreaming. Jacob crouched there, hidden behind a lush wall of bushes, and admired Grace's artful design. A large hill in the garden gradually rose up. Various flowers grew in tiers on it, demonstrating the variety of flowering. Grace explained that this layout allows you to grow many varieties, and each of them looks great. From Jacob's point of view, the garden seemed impenetrable, a hidden oasis of beauty and tranquility. In the center of the mound, hidden by the upper row of gladiolus flowers, there was a narrow but deep depression. Jacob, at 6 feet tall, could have stood halfway to the edge of the depression and gone unnoticed. But he decided to make himself comfortable and wait. Listening to the sound of an approaching car, he recognized Grace's Lexus. The car suddenly stopped behind his car, after which there was an amazing sound of the doors of 2 cars opening and closing. Jacob found this interesting. Jacob wanted to check if this was the handsome Shelby she had brought with her. If this is the case, then he will be able to complete several tasks at the same time. There were voices in the distance, too far away to make out the words, but clear enough to recognize one of them as male and the other as female. Jacob smiled, closed his eyes so as not to be distracted, and focused on the growing sounds as they approached. "He should be here," Grace said. "His car is here. I'll check inside." "Maybe you should check if he's near the house." "Of course, dear. I can't wait to see the look on his face when he sees me with you," Shelby replied with a grin. Handsome Shelby had a surprise waiting for the rest of the day. Grace giggled. "You're naughty, honey." "Do you like to be naughty, my little girl?" Jacob teased. "Yes, I do. We are perfect for each other," Grace replied. "Do you think if I tease him, he'll get angry?" Jacob shook his head at the Holborns' arrogance. He could only assume that they thought he was in his studio and couldn't hear them. "I hope so. I'm tired of pretending. It was exhausting pretending that I cared, day after day, year after year, when deep down I felt more like an eagle than a beautiful butterfly." Jacob couldn't help but grin at Grace's comparison. She was not a majestic eagle, but rather resembled a hyena, always ready to take advantage of a vulnerable situation. Grace couldn't help but giggle, repeating Holborn's words. "So who's the villain now?" She grinned mischievously and added, "You like the bad ones. That's why you love me. You and I are alike." When Jacob heard the creak of the front door opening, her voice was muffled by the walls. Despite the muffled sound, he could still hear her shouting his name as she moved from room to room. He imagined her getting more and more annoyed when she couldn't find him. "Jakey, I'll find you," Shelby muttered with a hint of contempt. Come out, wherever you are." Jacob ignored Shelby's condescending tone, confident that he would emerge victorious in the end. He just listened, waiting for the right moment to prove himself. The silence was broken by the sound of doors opening and closing, after which Grace called Jacob's name. Jacob was momentarily taken aback when he learned of her whereabouts. "Shelby?" she called. Judging by the proximity and direction of her voice, he realized that she was standing at his workbench and calling him through the open studio window. "Yes, baby," Shelby replied. Judging by his footsteps, he was approaching from the back of the house. "Did you find him?" Grace asked. "No, I haven't checked the backyard shed yet," Shelby replied. "It's actually a pottery shed. The previous owner was a professional potter. Inside there are 2 high-tech furnaces and an electric potter's wheel. The owner passed away, and we bought the land from his daughter." "I suppose he's not in the house?" "No, and the condition of the house leaves much to be desired. He looks like he's been hit by a bomb. I don't think he's washed the dishes or changed the sheets since I left. Empty bottles are scattered everywhere. A foul smell is coming from an overflowing trash can filling the room. It looks like he's lost a lot. This may turn out to be easier than we expected." Jacob noticed that Grace was speaking surprisingly calmly. There was no hint of concern in her voice. She seemed to be casually discussing the weather rather than the theory that her husband had harmed himself. "Do you think he's already hurt himself?" asked Shelby. "I guess I'm not sure," Grace replied thoughtfully. "His behavior was unusual and he ignored my calls, which is not like him. Maybe I should take a look at the pottery shed. Come on, and I advise you to search the house thoroughly again. Maybe he's hiding in the closet or under the bed somewhere stupid." "Okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes." Jacob's heart was pounding and his ears were buzzing with anticipation. Time was running out. He took a deep breath to calm himself and then carefully put the weapon in his back pocket. Moving silently along the narrow path, he crouched in front of the entrance, ready for what might happen next. When the weapon came into contact with his body, he instinctively recoiled and straightened up to ease the discomfort. He looked at his watch, realizing that it would soon be time to hang up. Despite the discomfort in his legs caused by immobility, he still overcame it. When Shelby approached the place where he was hiding, Jacob stood up impassively and casually addressed him. "Hey, lover, are you looking for me?" Shelby turned around in shock and instinctively took a step back. "What the hell is where?" he exclaimed, momentarily speechless. Gathering his strength, he shook his head, straightened up, and confidently stepped forward. "Well, well, well, look who it is, Jakey," he remarked with a grin. "You look like you've lost your wife." Jacob raised an eyebrow in confusion. "I didn't know that you are not only a prankster, but also a corporate guardian. You have an impressive resume." "Be careful, Jakey boy. You seem to have forgotten who's really in control here. I remind you, it's not you. I already have your wife, and let me tell you, she's a real thing. Grace is a strong woman who needs a firm hand, not the caresses you give her." Shelby Holborn grinned maliciously. "Jakey boy, I must admit that after studying your estate, I decided that I like the idea of having a country house myself." Jacob's smile was more like a grimace showing clenched teeth. Moving closer, he closed the distance between them and gripped the weapon tightly in his back pocket. Holborn raised his hands into fists, preparing to defend himself, but Jacob was already in Shelby's personal space, not allowing Holborn to identify the weapon without looking away. Jacob was sure Holborn wouldn't dare break eye contact. Jacob couldn't help but want to see in Holborn's eyes the realization of his impending doom. "Well, you can't have everything." He grabbed the garden fork tightly and stabbed at Shelby. Putting his hand over Shelby's mouth to stifle a scream, Jacob met Holborn's gaze, enjoying the look of horror on his face. Holborn's arms wrapped tightly around Jacob's arms, as if trying to hold him down. Jacob brought his face close to Holborn's and gave him a crazy grin. "Bring a fork, Holborn," he chuckled, amused by his own wordplay. He was sure that even Martin Riggs, Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon, would have appreciated his quick wit. Grace's sudden voice interrupted Jacob's joke, causing him to look over Holborn's shoulder and greet his wife with a smile. "Hello, Grace. It's nice to see you here with your secret lover." When Grace looked at him in disbelief and took a step forward, Jacob delivered the final blow. The smell of garlic coming from Holborn's last breath made Jacob wrinkle his nose in disgust. When Holborn's knees buckled, Jacob felt the pressure on his wrist increase. Casually picking up a garden fork, he watched as Holborn collapsed to the ground and looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Grace looked from her lover to Jacob's hand in shock. "Jake, what have you done?" she exclaimed. Jacob just grinned back. "I thought it was obvious. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about, so I stabbed him. It's actually a lot of fun. It's a bit messy, but definitely fun." Oh my God," Grace repeated, moving away from him. Jacob walked around Holborn's motionless figure and moved towards her. Grace continued to retreat, but Jacob kept up with her, getting closer with every step she took back. She shook her head, and he nodded back. Finally, Grace turned and disappeared, forcing Jacob to give chase. Adrenaline surged through his veins, and he felt the excitement of the hunt engulf him. Closing the distance, he tightened his grip on the garden pitchfork, feeling the power of the predator in himself. Catching up with his cheating wife, he squeezed her tightly. He reached for the garden fork lying next to her. "The lover said that you like hardness, that you crave strong touches. Well, Grace, how do you like it?" "Jake, please stop," she pleaded with fear in her voice. "I'm not Jake, I'm Jacob. Jake, please don't hurt me. Do you love me? I know you care about me." "Listen to me, my name is Jacob. I'm not Jake. Jake loved you, but I'm not Jake. He loved you so deeply. He was the only one who really cared about you. You were his everything. And how did you repay his loyalty? You betrayed him." Grace sobbed, shaking her head in disbelief. "Jake, you're talking nonsense. Please just listen to me. You're not Jacob. You're Jake Morrissey. You are my husband and you love me as much as I love you. I came here today to apologize to you." Jacob chuckled. Nice try, honey. That's why you brought a lover with you, right? Is he going to apologize too? He teased. You love Jake, don't you? That's why you spent months trying to hurt him. You even tried to kill him when he gave you everything. Despite all this, you and your partner didn't have the courage to handle it on your own. Instead, you relied on Jake to take care of it for you. He was the man who provided you with a wonderful house and garden, tried to be the perfect husband and create the perfect life for you. And what did you give him in return? You're Jake. You love me, she cried. No, I don't, he replied. When Jake looked into your eyes, do you know what he saw? An angel, a perfect and sweet angel. You're Jake, not Jacob, Grace stammered, trying to pull away. Grace felt Jacob clinging to her like a cowboy at a rodeo, not giving her a single chance to escape. Tears streamed down her face as she whimpered. Do you want to know what I see when I look into your eyes? You're Jake, Jake Morrissey, and Jake is gentle and kind. Jake loves me. You're not Jacob. I see a cancerous tumor. Do you know what they do with a cancerous tumor? Her sobs continued like a broken record. You're Jake, Jake Morrissey, and you love me. She's being cut out, that's what they do. Then everything was a blur, and when Jake came to his senses, he realized that he needed to act quickly. He mentally listed the tasks he had to solve, erase the messages from Grace's phone, drive the Lexus to Sydney, disguised as Grace, break into Sydney's apartment and leave signed divorce papers. There is. Get rid of Grace and Holborn's cell phones and disguises. There is. After carefully cleaning the house, tidying himself up and making sure he looked presentable, Jacob returned to the city looking normal and healthy. 3 weeks later, he was contacted by the police with questions about the disappearance of his wife and Shelby Holborn. Jacob was only able to confirm their affair, but was unable to provide any other help. A week later, they returned with a search warrant and even took small samples from his finished canvases to check for traces of blood on them. They didn't understand anything about colors. Blood will only ruin the colors in the end. Despite their best efforts, they came empty-handed. The investigation continued. Bart was delighted with the paintings for Jacob's upcoming exhibition, calling them his best creations. He admired Jacob's vibrant color palette. He suggested using terms such as kaleidoscope and quasi-mosaic in the exhibition's promotional booklet. Although he didn't say it directly, he subtly hinted to Jacob that his recent fame would really boost sales. He confidently predicted that sales at the exhibition would exceed $1 million. Meanwhile, Jacob was just glad that everything was back to normal.